In the heart of Tennessee, nestled within the hills near Adams, there lies a legend that echoes through the branches of the ancient oaks. It's a tale steeped in mystery, whispered among locals, and shared around flickering campfires. This is the story of the Bell Witch, an entity whose voice still lingers long after the tales have faded into the night. It all began in the early 1800s when John Bell, a farmer with dreams as expansive as the rolling fields, settled in the area. The land was promising, offering him a chance to carve out a life for his family. Little did he know, his dreams would soon turn into a waking nightmare. The Bell family, consisting of John, his wife, Lucy, and their children, lived in harmony, unaware of the darkness that was about to unleash itself upon them. One evening, after a long day of toil, John returned home to find his family gripped by an unseen terror. As they gathered around the dinner table, strange noises crept through the walls, unsettling their peaceful abode. It started as faint whispers, like the rustle of leaves on a breezy night. But soon, those whispers twisted into something much more sinister: growls, scratching sounds, and even the chilling laughter of a child. At first, John thought it was merely the wind playing tricks on them. But as the days went by, the disturbances grew more malevolent. Objects flew across the room, shadows danced just out of sight, and it felt as though they were not alone, even in their own home. The family was terrified, but more than that, they were perplexed. What could possibly be causing this? Local townsfolk suggested mischief makers or wild animals, but deep down, the Bells felt bound to the supernatural. As the weeks passed, the entity revealed itself more frequently. It began to communicate, its voice feminine and filled with a strange charisma. The whispers evolved into articulate phrases. "I am the Bell Witch," it declared. It was a name that would haunt the Bell family and generations to come. The spirit claimed to have been wronged, vowing to take vengeance on John Bell. The family was bewildered and frightened, especially when the entity began to target their beloved daughter, Betsy. Betsy, a spirited girl with bright eyes, felt the witch's wrath acutely. This entity, whatever it was, wouldn't let her be. It tormented her in the dead of night and harassed her at school, leaving her an emotional wreck. Witnessing his daughter in distress broke John's heart. He knew he had to do something to protect his family. Word of the Bell Witch spread like wildfire. People from neighboring towns flocked to the Bell home, eager to witness the phenomenon for themselves. Some sought to commune with the spirit, while others simply wanted to witness the terror firsthand. Yet with each visitor, the intensity of the witch's anger seemed to escalate. The family found themselves caught in a relentless storm of scrutiny and fear. John Bell, desperate and exhausted, sought help from professionals. He brought in mediums and spiritualists, thinkers and theorists. They held seances, hoping to understand the spirit's motives. The more they tried to confront it, the more aggressive the witch became. Evoking the name stirred something deep within her, fueling her wrath instead of quelling it. One fateful night, during a particularly intense confrontation, the witch revealed herself in a horrifying manner. The family had invoked her name too many times, and in a flash of dark magic, she appeared before them. It was a visage that would forever be etched into John Bell's mind, a terrifying blend of rage and sorrow. "You will pay for your trespasses," she warned, her voice echoing ominously through the room. The family felt an overwhelming dread settle upon them. Haunted by visions and harried by noise, life began to unravel for John Bell. In the face of such darkness, he started feeling weak and weary, as if the energy of the witch was slowly consuming his very soul. His health deteriorated, and in the grip of the Bell Witch, he faced the specter of death. Gripped by fear, his family huddled together, hoping that somehow they could outlast the madness that had turned their lives upside down. In the months that followed, many townspeople claimed to have seen the witch. Some reported eerie visions in the woods. Others felt her presence cold and fierce. The dark clouds swirling above the Bell family seemed to expand, casting a shadow over an entire village. Their plight became the stuff of legends, sparking tales that would ripple through time. As winter approached, John Bell succumbed to his illness, his life extinguished, leaving behind a family shattered by grief and a community gripped by fear. His death did not bring the peace they hoped for, rather it sparked new hauntings. The entity continued her reign, targeting not just the Bells, but those who dared to speak her name. In the wake of John's passing, the Bell Witch faded into a legend, yet her voice never truly disappeared. Some say she still roams the hills of Adams, watching over her domain, waiting for her moment to return. Others believe she whispers warnings to those who tread on sacred ground. The echoes of her laughter, the chilling reminders of her presence, dance along the rafters of the old Bell home, lingering in the air, haunting the very essence of the community. Those who venture into the woods near the old Bell property speak of a rustle in the leaves, a whisper carried by the wind, and a chill that dances down their spine. The Bell Witch might be just a story, a ghost of the past, but in the quiet of the night, when the fog rolls in, her voice still hangs in the rafters, a reminder of the unexplainable, and a testament to the power of fear that lingers in the unknown. Years passed, yet the tale of the Bell Witch continued to echo through the valleys of Adams. Many believed the spirit had found a new home within the shadows of the old Bell estate, where overgrown vines choked the structure and the foundation creaked under the weight of time. Despite the passage of seasons, the memories of the disturbances remained vivid for those who had witnessed them firsthand. Betsy, now a young woman, moved away from Adams to escape the whispers that seemed to follow her like a shadow. She sought solace in the bustling city life, hoping that the noise of urban existence would drown out the specters of her childhood. Yet she often found herself drawn back to the woods, an invisible thread pulling her toward the place where her nightmares had unfolded. Night after night, the haunting whispers would seep into her dreams, the Bell Witch's laughter brushing against her consciousness as she tried to lead a normal life. One fateful autumn evening, Betsy returned to Adams, driven by a sense of closure that had eluded her for so long. The air was crisp, leaves danced a vibrant tapestry of colors, and the full moon bathed the landscape in a silvery light. As she stepped onto the familiar path leading to her childhood home, the memories came flooding back, each step igniting echoes of laughter and anguish. Upon her arrival, Betsy noticed a gathering of locals outside the old Bell property. Curiosity sparked in her heart as she approached, finding townspeople gathered around the fire, exchanging stories of the Bell Witch. The air was thick with tension and nostalgia. It seemed the spring winds had awakened old fears buried deep within the community. "Can you feel her presence?" whispered one elder, his voice trembling like dried leaves in the breeze. He recounted tales of encounters with the witch, weaving a narrative that glimmered with both fear and reverence. "She has a way of drawing you in, playing with your mind, testing your resolve." Betsy listened intently, her heart thrumming in her chest. She felt the weight of their collective fear resting upon her shoulders. The spirit of the Bell Witch had become an integral part of their identity, a being who transcended time, whose whispers thrived off the fears of those who believed. Through the gathered crowd, Betsy spotted a familiar face, the daughter of a family friend, Emma, who had often accompanied them during their childhood adventures. After exchanging quick pleasantries, Emma whispered, "They say she's been more active these days." Some have even claimed they felt her soft touch brush by them in the night. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, Betsy felt a longing to confront the entity that had haunted her for so long. "We have to go to the old well," she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper, yet reverberating with an urgency that surprised even her. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't be serious. The well is cursed. No one dares go there at night. The only way to move on is to face her, Betsy resolved, a fierce determination igniting within her. A small group of brave souls rallied around her, drawn by the magnetic pull of the legend. It was time to reclaim their narrative and confront a shadow that had lingered for far too long. As they made their way toward the well, the darkness deepened. The old trees appeared more gnarled in the moonlight, their branches stretched like skeletal fingers against the night sky. What once felt like home now wore a cloak of mystery, and every rustle of leaves sent shivers up their spines. Approaching the ancient stone structure, Betsy felt her breath hitch. This was where the Bell Witch had first declared her presence, where she had woven her tales of terror and sorrow. The place reeked of history, of raw fear and whispered secrets. Gathering around the well, the group exchanged nervous glances, uncertainty etching lines on their faces. "What if she responds?" Emma asked, her voice quaking as a gust of wind swept through, chilling them to the bone. Betsy stepped closer to the well, heart pounding in harmony with the whispers of the past. "If she's here, we must speak to her. We deserve answers." Taking a deep breath, she called out into the stillness, "Bell Witch, I am here to confront you. I want to know why you haunt this place and my family." Silence enveloped them, pressing heavy against their chests. Just as doubt began to creep in, the air shifted. A soft whisper floated through the trees, barely audible yet unmistakably present. "Why do you disturb my rest?" A chill ran down Betsy's spine, navigating the boundary between fear and curiosity. "We come seeking answers. You've tortured my family for years. What do you want?" Laughter rang out, soft, eerie and disembodied, echoing around them. "You came to understand, yet you know nothing." The voice sent chills racing through the group, but Betsy pressed on. "I want to know what wrongs you endured. Why this anger?" The response was like the rustling of leaves in a storm. "Betrayal and sorrow buried beneath the earth. You seek the light, yet linger in the shadows." As the essence of the Bell Witch swirled around them, Betsy felt her heart pound with a mix of fear and empathy. "What can we do to bring you peace?" she urged. Silence again reigned for what felt like ages. Finally, a voice reverberated through the night, more powerful this time. "The past must be acknowledged. The truth must rise." With those words, a strange warmth enveloped Betsy, as if the spirit recognized her willingness to dig deeper into the roots of their shared history. She returned to the group, their faces pale in the moonlight. "Find the truth," she urged them, her own conviction sparkling in her eyes. "We can't hide from the past, but we can understand it." As the night wore on, whispers of the Bell Witch filled the breeze, echoing the stories, fears, and legacies she had woven into the fabric of their lives. It became clear that the legend of the Bell Witch was not merely a tale of horror, but also one of redemption and the search for understanding, resonating through time, waiting for someone to answer the call. Together, they left the well, burdened by a deeper knowledge and a newfound sense of purpose, aware that the Bell Witch would continue to echo through the rafters, waiting for the next seeker brave enough to confront the shadows of the past. The days that followed were marked by an unusual energy in Adams. Whispers of the Bell Witch circulated through the community like wildfire, enhanced by tales of Betsy's confrontation at the old well. As people shared stories, a sense of intrigue and fear intertwined, leaving the air thick with anticipation. Word spread quickly, and soon visitors from neighboring towns began to arrive, drawn by the allure of the supernatural. They flocked to the Bell estate, hoping to glimpse the ghostly figure rumored to haunt the land. Some arrived with cameras, others with notebooks, eager to document any strange occurrences. The local market buzzed with discussions of the witch, and local businesses found a renewed sense of purpose, profiting from the curiosity surrounding this singular legend. Betsy, however, was overwhelmed by the sudden attention. What she had hoped would be a path to understanding had spiraled into a spectacle. Each night, groups gathered near her childhood home, their laughter and conversations mingling with the lingering echoes of the witch's presence. Though some were respectful, many treated the event more like a carnival than a solemn communion with the past. One evening, under a thick blanket of stars, Betsy slipped away from the gathering, seeking solace in the familiarity of the woods. They felt both welcoming and ominous, each step echoing with memories of her childhood. She found herself drawn to a clearing where the moonlight pooled like silver. The winds whispered through the trees, and for a moment she felt the weight of the world lift. Then a sound broke the tranquility, a soft rustle, followed by a voice that sent chills racing up her spine. "You returned, daughter of the bells." It was unmistakably her, the Bell Witch. The air felt charged with unseen energy, leaving Betsy both frightened and intrigued. "I am here," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of her heart. "I have been waiting," the witch replied, her voice melodic yet haunting, pregnant with meaning. "To confront the past is to face both shadows and light. But you seek the light." Betsy took a deep breath. "Yes, but it's difficult to reconcile the fear you caused with the pain you suffered. I want to know more about you. What happened that made you this way?" The witch's laughter echoed through the night, a sound both chilling and sad. "I was betrayed, scorned, forgotten. My voice, which once held power, turned to whispers, drowned out by the fear I inspired. I do not wish to be a monster, yet you label me as such." "Was it your anger that created this?" Betsy asked gently, seeking to understand rather than judge. "What is it that you want?" "I wish to reclaim my story. The truth is buried, hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding. I am a spectre, a reflection of treachery." The witch sighed, her voice tinged with sorrow. "It is the fear and betrayal of those who came before you that feeds my unrest." As she spoke, the shadows danced at the edges of the clearing, swirling, shifting, alive with stories yet to be told. Betsy felt a heaviness settle in her chest. "How can we help you find peace?" she implored. "Open the door to remembrance, reveal the buried truths. You must unearth the legacy that binds us. Only then will the chains of bitterness fall away, and I may find my peace," the witch whispered, her voice softening like the fading light of dusk. Determined, Betsy felt a surge of responsibility. This was more than a ghost story. It was a quest to discern the roots of pain, and perhaps an opportunity for forgiveness. "I will. But how do I begin? Visit those who spoke my name with fear. Seek the elders who hold the memories of my past. Listen, understand, and share my story. Break the silence that has sealed my fate." With that, the moonlight shifted and the presence began to fade. "But remember," the witch continued, her voice echoing in the silence, "fear alone does not hold power. It is the truth, no matter how painful, that will set us free." As the last words hung in the air, Betsy stood in the clearing, heart racing with purpose. She faced the enormity of the task ahead. She had been granted a rare glimpse into the anguish of a tormented spirit, and she wouldn't squander it. The Bell Witch might be a spectre in the shadows, yet somewhere within that darkness lay the hope for redemption. The following days saw Betsy immersed in research. She visited the town library, poring over old documents, diaries, and letters, anything that could unveil the truth of the Bell Witch. As she dug deeper, the legend began to weave itself into a complex tapestry of betrayal, loss, and unresolved pain. Old records painted a picture of a woman, humble, wronged, yet powerful. Some accounts spoke of a bond with a local healer, someone who crossed paths with the witch long before the Bell family arrived. Folklore suggested she had once been a healer herself, misunderstood by the townspeople and wrongfully accused of witchcraft. Betsy shared her findings with the locals, gathered outside her family home. "She was once a woman just like us. We have to acknowledge her pain, to understand her fears," she urged, her voice rising above the crowd. Skepticism met her enthusiasm at first, but slowly the tides began to shift. The townspeople's fear morphed into curiosity spurred by a flicker of empathy. "What if," one elder mused, "we could learn to embrace the past and not fear it? Perhaps we can uncover the truth that has been buried for so long." Thus began a series of community meetings where Betsy invited those who held fragments of stories to share. Elders spoke of their ancestors, of the witch's misunderstood power, of how fear transformed her into a lingering spectre. With each tale, the shadows of the Bell Witch began to shift, evolving from a figure of terror into a symbol of resilience. People who once stood frozen in the throes of horror began to unite, forging paths paved in understanding. The Bell Witch, once a face of fear, became a conduit for healing. Often whispers filled the air as stories were shared, and walls of silence crumbled, allowing the essence of understanding to seep into the heart of Adams. Each night they gathered in the clearing, illuminating their thoughts and fears under the silver light of the moon. As their voices melded with the winds, Betsy felt the Bell Witch's presence grow gentler, as if the spirit sensed the shift of energy, the beginning of reconciliation. By acknowledging the past, they forged a new bond, not just with the legend of the Bell Witch, but with the very fabric of their community. Together, they slowly unveiled the layers of pain that had lingered for generations, transforming fear into understanding and, ultimately, into peace. And as the veil lifted, the whispers of the Bell Witch began to feel like the soothing brush of comfort rather than the chilling grip of fear, as her voice echoed through the rafters, now singing a different tune, one of healing and hope. As the community continued to gather under the moonlight, stories flooded the air like a gentle breeze. Each night they would sit around a crackling fire, embracing the warmth of companionship and understanding, while the spirit of the Bell Witch seemed to draw nearer. Betsy, now the unwitting leader of this renewed narrative, found herself at the center of a remarkable transformation. The elders, some who had once filled the tales of the Bell Witch with warnings and dread, began to recount their memories more openly. They unlocked the doors to the past, revealing not just fear, but also compassion. Memories of their ancestors mingled with those of the Bell family, creating a shared history that resonated with everyone. As these stories intertwined, they began to paint the Bell Witch less as a singular entity of fright and more as a complex figure caught in a web of misunderstanding and grief. One elder, Eliza, spoke of her great-grandmother, who had known the witch before terrifying tales had rewritten her fate. She was known as Kate, a gentle soul who tended to the sick and healed the weary, Eliza recalled, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. In those days, magic was a natural part of life. People sought her gift willingly. But as times changed, so did perceptions, and soon she became a scapegoat for the fears that rose within our community. The gathering fell silent as Betsy absorbed Eliza's words. The idea of the Bell Witch being once a healer, a bearer of wisdom, turned her previous notion on its head. "So, you're saying she was punished not for her actions, but for her power?" Betsy asked, intrigued. "Precisely. When she was persecuted, she faced betrayal from those she had once helped. It led to an outpouring of anger that turned her spirit into the legend we fear today," Eliza explained, and a shiver grazed the crowd. "Our ancestors had a part in this as well. They let fear fester and blinded themselves to the truth." As the night deepened, the group pledged to rewrite the narrative together. They began a project, an oral history curriculum for the local schools, a way to preserve the stories of the Bell Witch and educate future generations on the dangers of misunderstanding and stigma. Children would learn about Kate, the woman who became the Bell Witch, and about the community that had failed her, ensuring that no one would be unjustly condemned again. With that shared purpose, the spirit of the Bell Witch transformed from a source of dread into a powerful symbol of resilience. Betsy felt the air shift every time they spoke about Kate, her presence becoming softer, almost encouraging. Each gathering became a balm for the village, weaving together the threads of sorrow and hope. They honored both the past and the spirit, allowing the stories to guide them toward a brighter future. But one night, under the weight of a thick fog that rolled through the trees, Betsy found herself drawn back to the old well. The air crackled with an age-old energy, and she felt a compulsion to return to the place where it all began. As she approached, she could almost hear the murmur of voices echoing through time. "Why have you come again, daughter?" The voice was familiar, resonating through the cool night air. Betsy paused, steadying her breath as she prepared herself for the confrontation she felt was necessary. "I need to ask you something important," she replied, her voice steady, despite the fear simmering beneath the surface. "We have begun to share your story, to frame it differently. But there's still so much to learn. What else do you want from us?" Silence reigned for a moment, followed by the soft rustling of leaves. "You seek understanding, but there are chains that still bind us. Speak to those who live in fear today and heal what has been broken." Betsy's heart raced at the implications of the witch's words. Is this about the wider community? There are still stories, even in our time, of fear and misunderstanding. "You want us to address them?" "Yes," the witch's voice echoed with an urgency that ignited a fire within Betsy. "To unearth the truths buried beneath the fear today, to lend your voices to those who are silenced." Gathering her courage, Betsy nodded. "I will. We will make this right. We won't let fear divide us again." With that promise lingering in the air, the presence of the Bell Witch felt brighter. It seemed she relished the idea that her legacy could be a force for unity, not division. Betsy knew they had to confront not just the stories of the past, but also the shadows of the present. The following weeks passed, and the town's commitment blossomed. They organized community forums to share current fears and represent the voices of those marginalized. These gatherings echoed the ones around the fire, but they expanded to include stories from all walks of life. The heart of the community began to heal as they fostered an environment of acceptance, compassion, and understanding. During these meetings, shared experiences revealed a tapestry of struggles. Families grappling with economic hardship, individuals battling mental health issues, and all overshadowed by the societal norms that often led to isolation. Betsy watched as fear transformed into solidarity. Together, they encouraged open dialogues and support networks, creating a chorus of voices that were once silenced by fear. One night, after a particularly powerful gathering, Betsy found herself outside beneath the star-speckled sky. The gentle hum of laughter and conversation lingered in her ears, a reminder of the connections they were forging. And just as she lifted her gaze, a soft breeze wrapped around her, bringing with it the unmistakable spirit of the Bell Witch. "Your work has just begun," the voice floated through the night. "Continue this journey, for within unity lies true freedom. Help others to unchain their fears." Betsy smiled at the darkness that had once been filled with fear, but now brimmed with hope. With a newfound sense of purpose, she knew that the story of the Bell Witch was not an end, but the beginning of a larger narrative, one that valued truth, embraced understanding, and celebrated unity. Inspired by the witch's profound wisdom, Betsy returned to the community ready to enlighten them on their ongoing journey. Together, bound by shared stories and resolved hearts, they would carry the legacy of the Bell Witch forward, breaking chains of fear both past and present, uniting in voices that would never again be silenced. As they looked toward the future, they understood that the echoes of those who had been wronged could finally find peace, infused with the lessons learned from a spirit once cloaked in darkness, now rising into the light. The celebrations of understanding and healing blossomed in Adams. The community was united in a way it hadn't been for generations, transformed by the very tales that had once instilled fear. The story of the Bell Witch, once confined to half-whispered warnings in the dark, had become a beacon of hope, an invitation for everyone to confront their shadows. Betsy, now a figure of change, continued to lead the charge. She coordinated seminars at the local schools and community halls, inviting historians and storytellers to breathe new life into the legend. These events were not just about remembering the Bell Witch. They were about addressing how fear and misunderstanding plagued their present. The voices once silenced began to resound, echoing in the halls as they shared tales of struggle, resilience, and healing. As summer approached, they organized a festival to celebrate the rebirth of the Bell Witch in a new light. Families came together, booths were set up, and music echoed through the streets. They created a space filled with stories, not of horror, but of unity and strength. One of the festival's highlights was a storytelling circle where people could share their experiences, stories of those who had been marginalized or misunderstood. Betsy invited members from neighboring communities, recognizing that the lessons of empowerment needed to stretch beyond the borders of Adams. On the day of the festival, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Children ran about, laughing and playing, while adults gathered under the large oak trees that had stood for centuries, their branches swaying gently in the summer breeze. Betsy stood at the center of the gathering, her heart swelling with pride as she looked at the faces of her neighbors, once clouded with fear, but now shining with hope. "Today, we reclaim our story," she announced, her voice ringing clear. "We honor not only the Bell Witch, but everyone who has felt the weight of judgment and fear. Let's celebrate the power of understanding." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a chorus of voices united against the backdrop of the past. Each story shared was a thread woven into the rich tapestry of their community, creating a fabric that offered warmth and strength. One young man, Caleb, stood to share his tale. "For years, people whispered about me," he began, his voice trembling yet resolute. "I was always the odd one out, and instead of acceptance, I felt alienation. But coming here today, seeing all of you standing together, it empowers me. I know now that I am more than just the labels people put on me." As he spoke, others joined his cause. Women shared their experiences of overcoming trauma. Men spoke of battles with inner demons. The stories flowed, revealing the raw humanity behind their lives. Each shared moment was charged with unspoken truths, begging to be acknowledged and healed. The festival continued well into the night, music floating on the air like a soft lullaby. Stories in the darkness became whispers of unity, a contrast to the once lurking shadows that had plagued their ancestors. Betsy watched as friendships blossomed, breaking barriers that had long stood unchallenged. As the night deepened, Betsy felt the familiar rush of energy around her, signaling the spirit of the Bell Witch was close. The laughter, the stories, the sense of community, it seemed to resonate with what she had longed for. It was as if the witch herself was part of the tapestry, reveling in the shared humanity. Just as the festival reached its zenith, Betsy felt a gentle breeze brushing against her cheek. "You have done well," the spirit whispered, her voice woven with both pride and relief. "You have turned my darkness into light. The stories no longer bind but liberate." Betsy lifted her chin, feeling the weight of the past lift. "We will continue to share and remember, not just for you but for everyone who has faced judgment. This is our promise." As the moon hung high, casting its silvery glow on the gathering, something monumental shifted in the air. There was a collective understanding, an unspoken agreement to forge ahead, carrying forward the lessons learned from introspection and connection. The town of Adams would not only remember the Bell Witch, but transform her legacy into one of empowerment. Weeks rolled into months, and the impact of the festival rippled through the community, attracting attention from surrounding areas. Stories of their transformation spread like wildfire, and soon Adams became a gathering place for those seeking to share their own tales of adversity and resilience. Betsy, now an advocate for change, found herself invited to speak at various forums, sharing the powerful journey that had arisen from the depths of fear. Each opportunity allowed her to spread the narrative of understanding beyond the boundaries of her town, igniting a movement to recognize the humanity in every individual. Across the miles, towns began to follow Adams' lead, organizing their own storytelling circles, fostering spaces for dialogue and compassion. The legacy of the Bell Witch grew and flourished, not as a dark tale to scare, but as a herald of solidarity, calling for openness and acceptance. As the seasons changed once more, Betsy would often revisit the old well, contemplating the journey taken. The air felt different now. It was lighter, filled with promise. And occasionally she would hear the familiar laughter carried on the wind, reminding her that the spirit of the Bell Witch had transformed along with the community. The bond they had created was one of empathy and resilience, transcending the fears of yesterday. In reclaiming the story, they won not just for themselves, but for the spirit who had once been lost in the shadows. Their shared voices had emerged as a symphony of truth, echoing through Adams and beyond, resonating forever with the message that healing lies in understanding, and light can always be found, even in the darkest of places. The years rolled on, and Adams experienced a renaissance unlike any the town had seen in decades. The Bell Witch's legacy, once shrouded in fear, had transformed into a powerful symbol of resilience and unity. Betsy's initiative to share stories and embrace the shadows of their past served as a reminder and a pathway for healing, not just for her community, but for many others inspired by their journey. With the annual festival now a celebrated tradition, it attracted visitors from far and wide. Families arrived, eager to learn about the rich history of the Bell Witch and the transformation of the town. Workshops were held, encouraging community members and visitors alike to discuss topics like mental health, empathy, and the importance of storytelling. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and the spirit of acceptance permeated every gathering. Betsy took her role as a storyteller seriously. Each year, as the festival approached, she would prepare diligently, ensuring that the essence of Kate, the woman behind the Bell Witch, was honored. She worked with historians to gather every scrap of information, every untold story that could shed light on Kate's life, her struggles, and her innate kindness. The more they uncovered, the more they realized how deeply intertwined their stories really were. One summer, while organizing a series of discussions, Betsy decided to invite a renowned folklorist named Thomas. His work on legends and their societal impacts had garnered attention, and she believed his insights could enrich the festival. When Thomas arrived in Adams, he felt the palpable energy that surrounded the town. It was clear that this wasn't just a community, it was a family bound by shared stories and newfound hopes. As the festival approached, Betsy introduced Thomas to the townspeople, emphasizing the importance of understanding the narrative. "We have reclaimed a part of ourselves," she explained, during one of their gatherings. "Now we must pass that understanding on to others. Stories hold power." Thomas nodded, inspired by the community's commitment. Drawing from his expertise, he suggested they hold storytelling workshops where townspeople could craft their own tales, blending traditional elements with modern reflections. "Let's write a living narrative," he proposed, "one that grows and changes with each generation." The idea resonated deeply with everyone. As the evening sky darkened, they gathered around the fire, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows that mirrored the spirits of the stories being shared. Each participant channeled their creativity, crafting narratives that intertwined both personal experiences and the town's collective history. Laughter, tears, and gasps filled the air, echoing the emotions that had long been buried. The festival featured a central performance, where local actors reenacted the pivotal moments in the story of Kate. Betsy took on the role of Kate, She wanted to honor the spirit that had once caused pain, but now served as a guide for understanding. Clad in period attire, with the moon shining bright overhead, she portrayed both the torment and the grace of a woman misunderstood. As she stepped onto the makeshift stage, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. "I am not just a ghost," she declared, channeling Kate's essence. "I am a reflection of the fears and joys of all women who have been cast aside." The audience sat in rapt attention, captivated by the emotional depth unfolding before them. Her performance culminated in a call to action, urging everyone to speak their truth and recognize the humanity in one another. "Let us not repeat the mistakes of the past," she implored, her voice rising above the stillness of the night. "Let us be bearers of compassion, understanding, and love." As the final curtain fell, a wave of applause surged through the crowd. Betsy could see tears in the eyes of many, including Thomas, who recognized the profound impact this festival had made on their community. They had redefined what it meant to share a story, reminding each person present of their power to create change. The following year, the festival grew even larger, evolving into a 3-day celebration of culture, storytelling, and community engagement. They invited speakers from various backgrounds, including mental health professionals, activists, and artists, who resonated with the theme of shared narratives. The conversations sparked not only curiosity, but also a call to action among attendees. Betsy felt a sense of fulfillment as she watched people interact, bridging connections among those who felt isolated or ignored. Stories flowed freely, and the walls built by years of misunderstanding slowly crumbled. The Bell Witch, once a secretive entity cloaked in fear, had become a central figure in an ongoing dialogue surrounding empathy and redemption. As summer turned to autumn, the leaves began to swirl like past memories. Betsy often found herself near the old well, a cherished site of reflection. The well stood as a monument, not only to the Bell Witch's journey, but also to her own transformation and that of her community. She would toss a handful of flowers into the well, a tribute to Kate, honoring the power of shared stories. One chilly evening, Betsy sat with her closest friends, reminiscing about the festival and the profound changes that had taken place in their lives. "In taking the time to learn from the past, we've created a beautiful foundation for the future," she reflected, her eyes sparkling with hope. "These stories are alive. They thrive in every one of us." Then, as if on cue, a soft breeze swept through the air, wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. Those present felt as if Kate herself was there, nodding in approval. No longer a presence of fear, but one of understanding and compassion. They knew the work wasn't finished. There were still stories to tell, voices to amplify, and shadows to illuminate. But together, they understood the strength they held in their community, the bonds forged through shared narratives, and the redemptive power of empathy. It was a new dawn for Adams, where the legend of the Bell Witch had truly transformed into a guiding light, shining brightly for all. And as the last vestiges of autumn faded, they carried the spirit of the Bell Witch into winter, ready to face whatever stories the future would present, united in hope, understanding, and love.